Hey there. In this video, we're going to be changing our health bar and making it a little bit more extensive, and we're going to change it to energy bars. So that we're going to have a bar for the player's health, a bar for the player's special weapon energy, and we're also going to have a bar for the boss enemy's health. So we're going to have end up having three bars, and we're going to basically have the ability to switch colors of those bars through changing the sprites. And then what we're also going to do is we're going to color swap on our player so that when he defeats these bosses, he ends up acquiring their weapons. And when you switch between each boss weapon, he actually the outfit color changes, and he gets a new bar for the weapon, and then it's a different color for that bar. So we're going to be taking a look at doing that today, and here is what we're going to have in the end. So right now what we have is just the regular health bar here. And I tied in the switching of the different colors to the teleport. So I press T, it switched over to a different outfit or weapon. And this is the Firestorm, which is what's acquired after you defeat Fireman. So, and this is basically done through a shader here, but this is actually a graphic for the image for the weapon bar. So we're actually going to be doing two different methods in this video. So he's going to switch between them. It's just random, so there's really no. And when you switch back to the player, the bar will disappear. So it's really just randomized. I don't have it where it goes in a loop through each of them. That's like Ice Slasher from Iceman. The green one, I think it's, I forget which one that is. And then back to the player. But we have each one of them in there for each boss that ends up getting defeated in the first Mega Man. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So this is through just switching sprites, and this is going to be through using a shader. So we're going to stop here, and then we're going to pull up the previous project, and then we're going to start making changes to build this out. Okay, so we have our previous project up. So what we'll first do is we'll just move that out of the way, and we're going to switch over to the main scene, and then we'll bring that over. So here's the main scene, and what we're going to do first is we're going to work on the health bar or the energy bars. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're actually going to be renaming the health bar that we've been using to energy bars. And then we're going to, before we do that though, we're going to go into the sprites sheet. Actually, let's just get that out of the way. We're going to go into the sprite sheet, and we're going to cut out the rest of those images. So the reason I'm doing this is for this video is the one way we're going to be doing it with the health bars, we're just going to use the sprites. We're not going to do anything with shaders, just so you kind of see like both methods. And you can actually adapt the whole shader thing to doing it with the health bars if you want, once you learn how to do it with the player. But for this, we're just going to have the static images that have a different color for each bar. So what we're going to do is go over to graphics, go to the life and energy bars, and then go to Sprite Editor. So right now all we have are the two bars. We have the empty bar, which is all black, and then what we have here is the player health. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to rename these and just make them basic. So this one I'm going to call player life, and then we're going to rename this one to empty bar. And just apply that. And these are all the other bars are all the same, it's just they're different color schemes. So rolling cutter from Cutman. This is the boss color when you face Cutman, this is actually his health bar. So we have a variety of bars in here. And to save on time, I'm not going to cut every one of these out and have you watch me do that. I'm actually going to just do one. I'm going to pause it, come back, and then we'll go through each one so that you can pause, do your thing, and basically copy what I've done so it doesn't take as long of a video to do this. So let's start with the rolling cutter. So all you gotta do, just drag around this, just do the square around it. And what you're going to do is you're going to center, do bottom center, so you're going to set the pivot down there. And then we're just going to rename it to rolling cutter. So then we can, I'll apply it on this one, but then I'm just going to cut them all out, rename them all, and do the pivots on each of them, and then we'll come back. So I'm going to pause here and come back, and we'll go through each bar. Okay, we're back. So let's start with the rolling cutter, which we did before the break. So we're just going to call it rolling cutter, and every single one of these is going to be pivot bottom center. So I'm not going to mention that anymore. So you're going to just do each one. So this is going to be rolling cutter. That one's going to be cut man and yellow devil, super arm, guts man, and even though this is the same as the player life, we just have it so it's got its own name. Copy robot, ice slasher, Iceman, and we'll come back over to this one last. Hyper bomb, bomb man, Wily machine, firestorm, fireman, thunderbeam, electman, magnet beam, and then last is this one where he has 7 stages and different colors, bars for each stage. So CWU-01P and then underscore and then which phase it is. So 1 through 7. So there's the first one, same name but second one, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. And then when you're done with that, hit apply. And these are the positions. Obviously we're not going to have it exactly identical, but it's going to be basically looking the same in the alignment terms. So then you can close that out. So now if we expand this, we have all of our different bars. So, and there's each of them. So now what we're going to do is we need to make changes to the health bar here. And I think what I ended up doing is I ended up putting it in the last one. And so what we're going to do first is we're actually going to create a, actually what I didn't move it. What I ended up doing is you're going to create a new empty, and this is going to be called energy bars. And then you're going to drag the health bar onto energy bars. So it becomes a child. And what we're going to do is the health bar script isn't going to be on each of these. It's going to basically be only on this parent energy bars. So we're going to remove that from there. And on energy bars, we're going to add it. And we're going to call it, well, we're going to rename it. Before we do that, we're just going to put it on there. And then don't worry about the mask. We'll get back to that later. So player health bar, and what we're going to do on here is we're going to change this up, and then we're going to duplicate it for the other 2 bars. We're going to add on a canvas group, and what the canvas group is going to allow us to do is actually control the alpha on the bar, so we can make it disappear off the screen and have it reappear when we want it to through this alpha property. And let's see what this has got. Health bar. Let's just expand this a little bit. And so that is basically that's everything that we're going to do with the health bar. So on energy bars, we don't do anything more on there because we're going to elaborate on this. So what we're going to do, duplicate the player health bar, so highlight it, do Control D. So now we have the same thing here, but what we're going to do is this is going to be called player weapon bar. So you can get rid of that part. So player weapon bar. And this is going to be called weapon, I believe it's called weapon bar. Okay, so that's the weapon bar. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just duplicate that, or the other one, doesn't really matter. And then this one's going to be called enemy health bar. And then we're just going to call this, should have duplicated the first one. Anyway, this is going to be called health bar. The name isn't really relevant. And so here we go. So if we bring this over right now, let's just shrink this up a little bit. They're all sitting on top of each other because they all have the same x coordinate. So we're going to change the location on those. We'll start with the weapon bar. So we're going to go to that, and then you can go up here, and the position that we're going to put on that is -316. So it's going to be on the left side of the player's health. Now the enemy health bar is actually going to be negative, let's see, oops, it's going to be -268. So it's close enough to that image that we have. So it's got player health here, player weapon energy here, and then the boss energy, or the enemy health here for the boss. So those are going to be the positions that we're going to use on these bars. So then what we need to do is we need to make changes to our script, because right now the script, it's just for health. And what we need to do is make changes to it so it can cover all three of these and that they become independent of each other. So if you make a change to this, it doesn't affect them all, so they're not like all copies. So they're all actually, they do their own thing, and you're going to be able to change it through code, what you want to happen. Change the color of the bar, change the value, and toggle its transparency or its visibility. So that's what we're going to do next. So we're going to open up the script called UI health bar. We're going to actually end up renaming that. So it's not going to be a health bar anymore. It's going to be called energy bars. And this is actually going to cause some issues with our player controller, but we'll fix that. But first, what we want to do is at the top here, we're going to end up using the system namespace. So we're going to add that in. We do that because we're going to be using enums for a lot of different things. So first is that, and then second is we're going to rename the class. So we're going to call it energy bars. And we can just copy that. You're going to rename the static instance. And I noticed that the instance has been a lowercase, or it should have been an uppercase, like the game manager and the sound manager. But that's just being me being picky. And that's what we're going to do with this just for the moment. So we're going to save that. And then if we go back over to here, then we're going to have all these up. UI health bar doesn't exist. So we're going to double click on that. That's going to take us into the player controller. So what we can do is drop in that same thing, UI energy bars, change the instance, and then there should be another spot down here. And then change the instance to a capital I. Save those changes. If you go back to Unity, the error should go away. Unless there's another. Nope, that's it. So those are the changes that we're going to do for that. And then we're going to go back over to the, oh, we have to rename the script too. Duh. All right, go back over here to Unity, get that out of the way, go in the project here, and then we can just drop in that, and I should rename it too. And if it's done crunching, yeah, UI energy bars. Yeah. So I renamed the actual file. Okay, so what we're going to do to make this happen is we're going to create a struct And the struct is going to be basically the properties of each bar so that we can access those. So I want to move this. Let's see. I'm going to put this at the top. Oops. There. So public, let me make sure that's right. So public status UI instance, and then we're going to just get rid of that stuff. We're going to say equal to null. And then down here, we're going to say system.serializable, and then we're going to create the struct. So public struct, we're going to call it energy bar struct. Energy bars struct. And inside of that, we are going to put these same class members that we were using for just the single bar, but now this is going to be a public, and it's not going to be called original. We're just going to call it size. So mask and size, and then underneath of it, we're going to create a public. We're going to define that so we can use it. And we're going to make it an array. Energy bar structs. So we're going to basically create 3 of these structs, one for the player health, one for the player weapon energy, and then one for the boss health. And then what we're going to do is after that, we're going to create another enum. And then that enum is going to be called energy bars. And these are going to be the bar types, the ones that we have available. So we're going to call, the first one's going to be player health. The next one's going to be called player weapon. And then we're going to have one called enemy health. So these are the types of bars that we're going to have used through code to access them. And then we're going to create a serialize, and it's going to be of type sprite because this is going to be for each of the sprite images for the colors. So we're going to make that an array, and we're going to call it energy sprites. And then another enum, so to make use of enums. And then this one's going to be called energy bar types. And this is where it's going to be like a lot of typing. So first one's going to be the player life. These are basically like the names of the for each image that we have or each sprite that we defined in the sheet. So we're going to basically kind of match them up. So magnet beam. And there's no particular order that I'm doing these in. I kind of group what the player, and then I'll have like the enemy name, and then the enemy's weapon, etc., etc. And then I'll have like all the Wily level bosses at the end. But you can basically do this in any order you want. Just make sure that you end up matching them up later when we get to the part of dragging in the sprites to the array. So you're going to want to match them up in the same order. And then so we're going to do bomb man, hyper bomb, cut man, rolling cutter, and then elect man. For the most part, I kind of do it alphabetical. I believe Thunderbeam for the boss names, and then it's going to be fireman with his weapon of firestorm, and then it's Gutsman, and his is the super arm, and then we have Iceman, and his is the ice slasher, and then we're going to have the Wily boss level ones. So we have copy robot, and then we're going to say CWU01P1, and then we're just going to copy that because there's 7 of them. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we'll just change the index. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we're going to say Yellow Devil. And last one's the Wily machine. So let me save that. Let's check it out. Player life, Magnet Beam, Bomb Man, Hyper Bomb, Cut Man, Rolling Thunder, Electric Man, Thunder Beam, Fireman, Firestorm, Gutsman, Super Arm, Iceman, Ice Slasher, Copy Robot. All right, looks good. So that, we put a little thing right there. All right, so let's see what's next. So we're going to change this, and we're going to say if instance is equal to null, then we will assign the instance to this. Let's just fix that up. Save that. So now in the start, this is pretty much kind of, this is going to change here. So I don't care about this comment. We can get rid of that. So what we're going to do this is we're going to use a for each. So we can go through each bar. And so in each bar, we're going to say of type energy bars. We're going to say energy bar. And then this is where we use the system namespace. So we can use the enum get vals. So enum get values. So we could basically use this to get how many in each one. So get values, type of, and then that's going to be of energy bars. And then we're going to, so here's our for each loop. And then in here, we're going to say for each energy bar, and let me see here. So energy bar structs, and then each enum is a index, as you know. So we're going to just cast it as an integer, and for each type, so of energy bar, so it would be 0, 1, and 2, because we didn't actually literally define them. So energy bar, and then we're going to say dot size is going to be equal to, let's go down to the next line here, we're going to say energy bar structs, same thing, cast it as an int, and then it's going to be of energy bar, and then we're going to say dot mask. Well, actually what we can do is just take this here, because this is the same exact thing. So you can just cut that and put it on top of the mask there. So that's what we're replacing this with. So where we had one bar, now we have as many as we want here. We're just going to loop through each one of them. So we're going to assign the size, and when we drag the mask on through the inspector, then it'll get the height and everything. So then we just use this loop to do it. So that's the first one. The next one we're going to do is the set value is going to change. So we can get rid of this, and this is going to be very similar. So we're going to say, let me copy this. So energy bar structs. Now, before we do that, actually, we need to add in a new parameter. So we're going to say energy bars and of type energy bar, so we can specify which one we want. So when we go inside of like the player controller or whatever controller, and we can say which bar we want to manipulate. So that's what this variable is going to do to the value. So we're going to say, let's copy this because this is like the same thing. Paste there to get the index and which bar that we want to manipulate. And then we're going to say mask. And then this is kind of the same. So we're going to copy that, paste that. And this we can kind of get rid of. And then we're going to bring this down. And then we're going to bring this down. And then this is actually going to be, we're going to copy that, paste that there, but we want, it's not the original size, it's the little member called size. So we want to manipulate only this bar, and that's how we do it. So we're going to use this index or this enum to know which one we want to manipulate, and the size is inside of as the member for that array, that index. So then what we're going to do is we have another one here that we're going to add, and it's going to be called set image. So we have to create that one because we don't already have that. So that's going to be a public void set value, And I'm just going to close that up real quick. And then it's going to have this as the first parameter. So we want to what bar we want to change the image on. And then we're going to say energy bar types. And then the types is basically what's the image. So energy bar types. Let's see that. Okay. And then in there, we're going to copy, where's the mask at? We're going to copy this, because that's the same thing, so the mask. But from the mask, what we're going to do is we're going to use game object, because we're going to be dragging all the masks in the inspector, so we're going to have access to the mask. But we're going to have to go up a level to get to the image. So mask, and then game object, the transform of the game object, and then we're going to say get child, then the 0, index of 0, get component, and then we're going to access the image, and off the image we're going to do, you get the sprite, and then energy bar types, no, not types, I'm sorry, energy sprites, and this is why you need to make sure it matches up so that they are all equal to each other when you put them in. So energy bar type, there's a mistake somewhere. Hold on. It's because I put an S on here when it should have just been singular, energy bar type. Duh. All right, so save that. So this is what your function should look like. So this is how we're going to set the image, or it's not called set value. We need to rename it too. It's actually called set image. So save that. So now this is the function. So set image, which bar, what energy bar type, and then you're going to basically use the index of sprites, which you're going to assign through in the inspector to assign it to the mask. And the last one we're going to do is a public void. It's going to be called set visibility. And this is also of energy bars. Energy bar. And then we're going to say bool visible, a flag if it's visible. So from here, we're going to do the mask just like we did before. So we're just going to copy this part here, drop that in, and then on the next line, we're going to say game object, and then the transform, and then, but this time we're going to get the parent, and off the parent we're going to get component, and that's going to be the canvas group. So before we got the child on the other one, but this time we're getting the parent's canvas group. And what we're going to do from there is we're going to manipulate the alpha. So the alpha is going to be equal to visible, and whether visible is true or false. If it's true, we're not going to do like half transparency or anything. That's either going to be full or it's going to be none. So we're going to say it's going to be completely opaque or it's going to be completely transparent. So we double check that. Okay, looks good. So save that. So these are all the changes that we're making to what we now call energy bars. So now we can have as many bars as we want because we have this struct is going to be an array, and each element of the array is going to be a bar that we can manipulate. And if you were to ever add more bars, which should be outside of the game scope, then you basically need to add into here. And if you need to add more sprites, add it into here. And so now we're going to go back over to Unity. And what is this saying? Oh, right. So this is the player controller. We're going to come back to that because we have to change it because now we have that first parameter, which is the type, which bar we want to work with. So let's go over to energy bars here. Actually, it's not going to let me do anything until I get rid of that. So, okay, so here, our first parameter is going to be of energy bars. Oops. And then it's going to be, this is add life energy, so this is the player health. And then the next one, which is down here, so back that up, energy bars, and this is take damage, so this is also the player health. There, so this is the bar we're manipulating, which is the player health. So now that that's squared away, should go get rid of the errors, and it should refresh our thing. And so now our script is UI energy bars, and we have the structure, and we have the sprites. So with the structure, we want 3, 1 for each bar. So we're going to change that 0 to a 3, and now we have 3 elements. So we're just going to expand these. Don't worry about the size because the size is calculated based off of the mask that we supply it. So first element is going to be the player health. So what we want is this mask here, player health, to go into the first one. The next one is going to be the player weapon. Now remember, you're doing it based off of this order here. So player health, player weapon, enemy health. So the next one is going to be the mask for player weapon, which is in element 1. And then the enemy health is going to be the last one, which is this one here. So that's all set. So you can collapse those. Now we have each of those set. Now it's going to be the sprites. Now the sprites is actually, there's 24 of them. So we're going to do that. And you know that because we typed out 24 of these. So now we have to basically drag on each sprite to match up and make sure that they're all in the same order. Because otherwise you are not going to have, you're going to have a problem. It's not going to be as expected. So one sec. Okay. So we're going to go over to, let's lock this so we don't lose it, and then we're going to go over to our graphics, and then we have this already expanded, our life and energy bars. So the first one is going to be the player life. And so I'm going to fill these in. I'm going to pause it here and come back, and then you just can basically pause it on, pause the video and then just match it up. So I'll come back. Okay. So these are all the sprites dragged into the order that matches the enum. So just drag each one of these sprites in the order that you see here, same as the enum, and then you'll have all the different colored images that you can work with for our bars. So let us save that, and then we're going to put some code in to view these and toggle between them. So we're going to go over to the player controller. Let's just pretend that we don't have it open. So go to scripts and then just open up the player controller. So to test this out, what we're going to do is we're going to just tie in a debug key to press, and then it's just going to randomly pick an energy bar color. And we're going to do it for the weapon, the player weapon, and we're going to do it for the enemy health bar. And we're going to take that key out for the player weapon later when we actually change the colors of the player. And then because then we're going to tie it whenever we switch the player, it'll switch the bar. So then we'll just have the enemy one left behind at the end. So jump over to player debug input, I believe. And then once you're there, we're going to just scroll down to like the end of that function. So after teleport, we'll be making a change to that one later. So we're going to say for here, we're just going to tie in whenever you press the number 1. And we're going to say for random enemy health. So random enemy health energy bar color. So we're going to say if input get key down key code, or say alpha 1, so when we press the actual 1 key on the keyboard. So since it's a static class, we're going to say UI energy bars instance like we use when we're manipulating the health. and then we're going to use the set image that we created. So inside of set image, I'm just going to go down because this is going to become kind of long. So one sec. Let me see. So we're going to say UI energy bars. And which bar do we want? So first we need the instance, and then it's going to be oops. Energy bars dot. That's right. So then energy bars and then enemy health, because that's the one we want to manipulate. And then we're going to cast it. So UI, I keep saying energy. So UI or health. UI energy bars. And it's going to be of the bar types, because this is going to be the random. So we're going to randomly pick. So we have to cast this, and we're going to say unity engine dot random dot range. We're going to say 0, and the next line down here, we're just going to do an indent. We're going to say enum, and I don't know if I have enum. I don't think I've added it yet. So we're going to type it out. Hopefully it's going to mess up on me. So enum get values type of, and then it's going to be UI energy bars dot energy bar types, and that's going to be the length of that. And then I think, yeah, so then we can bring this up here. And that's not going to work yet because we have to import the system namespace for this enum get values. So let's just go back up to the top real quick, bring it down a line and just say using system. And if I can spell system, boom. So save that. And it's down there. We're going to jump back down to it. So PP player, debug input, come down back down here. We should not have any errors, and now we don't have any errors. So now this will work. So let's save that. Then we're just going to copy it, drop it in temporarily, and we're going to use the number 2 key for this. And then it's going to be a random weapon. So it's going to be random weapon energy bar color. So instead of enemy health, we want the weapon. So player weapon, and yeah, so this is the same thing. So that's the one we're going to manipulate. So let's go back over, and assuming that I did all this right, it should work. So I'm going to bring this over here and just drag it out a little bit so it's a little bit bigger. And let's just mute the audio. We don't care about that. So let's play it. Okay, so here's our boss health, our weapon energy, and our player health. So I am going to just press number 1, and it's going between the different sprites randomly to change the bar color. And if I do 2, now it's changing the weapon health, or the weapon energy. It's 2 different ones. So that part is working. And the other thing would be to check the value, but we can't really do that at this point. We're going to do that a little bit later. If it works for one, it'll work for all of them. So, and we already know it works for this. So actually, if I was to say, for instance, drop in, I'm going to drop in, let's drop in an enemy real quick. Prefabs, enemies, let's just drop in Big Eye. Let's see, kind of zoom this in, drop it up here. Let's just drop them there. Yeah, so the player health is the only bar being affected. So that's a modification for the energy bars. So then we're going to move on to the player. And the player is a little bit more, I don't want to say difficult, but it's definitely different. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using it's an article that I found that has to do with using a shader. So if you've watched the other videos with like not Peppy, but Killer Bullet and Big Eye, they all have, and Screwdriver, and there's others, I think Blaster. They all have different sprites with different colors. And what we ended up having to do to switch between them was cut out all the sprites in the different colors, use animator controller overrides, and basically duplicate all the animations. And to do that with Mega Man is going to be the biggest pain that you could ever imagine, because we haven't even finished him yet. So if it was finished and then you had a final product and then you had to go and duplicate for every color. So there's 6 enemies in this game. There's Bomb Man, etc. So, and then he has his default color set, which is where he's blue. So you're going to have 7 different variants, and all using the same different animations that are all the same with different colors. And if you ever make a change in one, you got to make a change for them all, and it's really a pain in the butt. The bars is one thing, it's a simple little bar. All you do is drag in a sprite, but to do it with all the animations, yeah, yeah. So you talk about pain. I'd rather go to the dentist, honestly, than do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a shader. And let me pause this. Let me pull up the page that this is coming from. Nice. So this is the page that we're going to be that has the basically information and the code that we're going to be using to switch our Mega Man sprite colors around. I'm sure there are other resources out there, and I'm not a shader expert by any means, and I'm still kind of learning it. And it's gonna, if I'm gonna be stuck on that, and it's just gonna delay the series. So what I did is I looked around. I was like, okay, how am I going to do this? And so I came across this article, and it works for the most part. I actually came across something where it doesn't work right, and we're actually going to have to make a change somewhere else to compensate for the problem, which happens to be the alpha transparency. And I don't know exactly why it doesn't work, and I really don't want to delay this to try and figure it out. So we actually make a change to our flashing damage to rectify that issue. So this is the article, and what it does is you can read about it. I'm not going to basically reiterate everything that's in this. But what it does is it takes the red channel of the sprite color, and it has a palette that it creates, and it's basically the red channel is considered like an index, like in an array, and it's going to point to the color that you want to swap it to. So that's what we're going to be doing for Mega Man. So we're going to be swapping his palette based off of the index. But to make this work, red has to always be unique. So you have 0 through 255 for the color, right? So best way to do that was to basically turn him into grayscale. So I'm going to open up, this is the original sheet that we had, and I actually changed this up. So I turned him into grayscale from his natural blue. So this red channel, if you look up the RGB for gray, they're always going to be like, all the same and everything was gray. So if this was like 40 hex, then the blue channel would be 40 hex and the green channel would be 40 hex. So RGB would be equal across the board. So what I ended up doing is I made sure that his dark area was unique and his lighter area is unique. So basically his helmet, gloves, and boots are one shade of gray, and then the other part, which was the light blue, is a different shade of gray. So this is how we're going to adjust his palette. So I don't expect you to do this with the sheet, so you can actually go over, look in the description of the video, go to GitHub, go find project this project, which is actually video 19, and then you can go into assets and graphics folder, download the player and player 2, and just replace the ones you already have in the project, just overwrite them. So then your Mega Man will turn gray. And then you don't have to worry about updating the colors because I've already taken the time to do that. So there's that one. And this is the second one. And the second one, what we use is for the teleport animate or the teleport intro animation. So we change this one. Otherwise, it's a lot of duplication and everything. And the palettes that we're going to be using is, I got this off of Sprite's Resource Mega Man. So these are all his specialty weapons per se. Here's the Mega Buster. This is his default suit color. But then when he beats Cutman, he gets rolling color and he gets this gray and whitish or really light gray suit. And if he defeats Gutsman, then he's got this kind of, I guess you could say like brick color and white, and etc. So Ice Slasher when he defeats Iceman, Hyper Bomb when he defeats Bomb Man, and Fireman, and Thunderbeam's Electman. So these are the colors. So all you have to do is like load this up in GIMP or Photoshop or whatever and use a color picker, and then you see what the two different colors are when you click on the dark area here and the light area here. So you'll be able to figure out the color scheme, but I already did all that. It's inside of what we're going to be typing out today for the changes in the code. So go grab those two images, go update your project, go drop those in the graphics folder, and you're going to see me doing it now anyway. So we're going to go to here. We can drag this out of the way. We're going to go into the graphics folder here. And I'm going to take this player and that player and drag them in, and it should replace them. And I hope it didn't make duplications because I don't think it should. Yeah, actually it did. Oh, that's a problem. So scratch that idea, delete those. So player 1 and player 3 should be player. Actually, hold on. Make sure. Yeah, player 1 and player 3. Yeah, kill those. Nuke those. Delete. Yes. And so what we'll do then in that case is just right click on this and show an explorer, and then drop them in here and overwrite instead. Don't do it through Unity because then it doesn't work right. So copy those, paste, replace, replace. Then if you go back over to Unity, now your Mega Man is nice and now he's gray. Okay. So what this article depends on is a shader, and to be able to use that shader is you need a material. So I'm not going to type out the shader. What you can do is just go inside to GitHub again. If you actually go, we're going to create a folder here. It's going to be called shaders. So inside of the root of assets, just create a folder, call it shaders. And inside of materials, we're going to create a material 2 button. So inside of shaders, we're going to right click, we're going to create, and we're going to say shader. And it's just going to be a standard shader. And then what we're going to do is we're going to call it color swap. So there. So this is our shader. So double click on the shader. It should open up in Visual Studio. This is the default. All this default stuff in here, but we don't care about any of that. So I actually have it open here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Control A, Control C, and that's what I expect what you can do is just go up into my GitHub, and under the assets and shaders, there should be a file in there. Just view the source or the raw code of that, and then you can copy that and then just override all that and save it. So this is basically the same thing as the article. I don't think I changed anything in this, but no, I don't think I did. I think everything is pretty much verbatim, I believe. So that's the shader. So then we can go back over to Unity. Now we have a shader. So then what we need to do is go over to Materials, right click, Create, and we're going to be creating a material. And we're going to use a material of the same name. So we're just going to say color swap. And when it's done crunching, we're going to assign our shader to this material when it's done thinking about it. Weird. Oh, duh. Turn off the lock. Duh. Okay, so there. So now under color swap, you're going to go to the shader and then click on the standard here, and it's going to be in the custom, and there's color swap. So there's our color. So this shader is not going to be using this, or this material is going to use this shader. So you can save that, and then we're going to go to our player, and what we'll do is actually we're going to do it on the prefab. So go to prefabs, players, open up Mega Man there, and then down here in the Sprite Renderer, where it says material, it's the default sprites one. You're going to change that. You're going to change it to color swap. And then you're going to close that, and you can save those changes, go back. It should do it here, and it did. So on our copy of our prefab in our scene, there's our color swap. So now what we need is the actual code to make use of this shader. So we're going to go into scripts, and we're going to create a new C# script, and we're going to call it color swap. And this is actually based off of the code from the article. So I think I cut some stuff out that we don't really need for this. So we're going to open it up. And I have it already here. So this is the, I guess you can say, the trimmed down version of it. So I'm just going to copy this and drop that in. So replace all of that, save it. And so I'm going to go through this real quick. So the Sprite Renderer, what you're going to do is you're going to take this script, you're going to drag it onto every game object you want to make use of color swap. So we're going to drag this onto the player, and we'll do it on the prefab. So it should show up on our copy. And so this is going to basically be access to the Sprite Renderer on our game object. And then this is the texture that's going to have the colors. And then this is the, I forgot, this has to do with the colors that that are inside of the texture, right? And then we get the access, then we initialize the texture. So basically, it's a 256 strip, single line strip, and initialize the colors, assign it to the texture, and then these are some static functions that you could basically convert from to convert colors. So you can pass it RGB, and then it'll convert it into the actual Unity color object. And then the swap colors is basically looks for the red index and then swaps to the color that it's supposed to, that's inside of the texture. And then here's where you apply it. And then down here I added, so if you wanted to actually debug it and look at the texture that gets generated, you can uncomment out these two lines here, and it'll write it to the root of your project folder, and it'll just call it color swap texture.png. So you can actually open that up in GIMP or Photoshop or any other paint program, and you'll see the strip where you'll see all the colors that are generated. And in our case, there's only going to be two because Mega Man's only got the two grays. So those indexes will be filled with the colors that we're going to generate from the swap color functions, and then we apply it. So you'll see what I'm talking about when we get to that. So we need this. So you can go and grab this file, the code from this file off of the GitHub and drop that in here. Or if you'd like, I can just wait right there, pause. So that function, those functions, and then those two last functions there. So you can type it all out if you want, or just go copy and paste it like I did. So now we're going to go back over to Unity. We're going to go back over to our prefab. So let's go open up Mega Man. And then we'll go to our scripts. And down here at the very bottom, we're going to add on our color swap. And that's all we need to do with that, because the way we're going to generate our color swapping is through code. So we can go back and save it. If we go to our player, it should have it on there too, which it does. There's the script right there. And now we're going to have to make changes to Mega Man himself. But if we actually play this, let me close some of these things here. We don't need that. We're done. This, we're done with that. We don't need this anymore. Don't need that anymore. And these, close that, and close that. And then we'll actually, you know what, for the heck of it, let's put the debug on so we can see what our texture looks like when we generate it. So inside of player, we're going to make some changes. So let's just go back up to the top. Now this random weapon energy, I will leave it because we might actually want to copy the code. So let's go back up to the top. So let me see. Hold on one second. All right. So I'm gonna we're gonna go from the very top, and we're gonna work our way down actually. So let's go into our player controller here, and we're gonna make the changes. So first thing is we need access to the color swap script. So we need to create a variable of that. So you can drop that in there. Then what we need is based off of the article, we're going to come after here this before our publics and the constraints. We're going to create a private enum, and we're just going to call it swap index. And the swap index is going to basically be the values for the red channels that we're looking for. So we only have the two. We have where we have the boots, the helmet, and the gloves, which is like what I'm going to call primary. That's like the primary part of his outfit, we'll say. The RGB value of that, if you look up in the gray, is actually a value of 64 for that gray. So it's actually a value of 64. The secondary, which is basically like the underlying part of his suit. So I'm just going to call it secondary, and that's actually 128. So it's a lighter shade of gray. So this is the darker shade of gray, this is the lighter shade of gray. And then we're going to define some enums here. Well, an enum first. And it's going to be a public, and we're just going to call it player. I was debating between calling it player colors or player weapons. And honestly, it's like they all fall under the same type of deal. So I just decided to call it player weapons, and the weapons will be based off the enemy names, so you can switch based off of that. We will, when we get to actually the boss fights and defeating the bosses and collecting the weapon part bonus drop item, and then we're going to work on building out the actual different weapons and being able to switch between them. So right now we're going to kind of do a little bit of the first part of that, which is actually switching the suit color and switching the energy bar color and activating it and deactivating it. So if he's in his regular Mega Buster mode, then there won't be a weapon energy color or a weapon energy bar showing, but if he switches to one of the others, then there will be. And then we're going to have to keep track of how much energy each one has, and that's what's kind of like the part of this video too. So we're kind of killing a lot of birds with one stone in this, but not all of them, because there's a lot of different things involved in this. So the first one is going to be called default, and this is when he's his standard blue Mega Buster only. And then we're going to say Bomb Man. So we're just going to do them alphabetical. So Bomb Man color scheme, and then we'll say, or Bomb Man weapon, Cut Man, Black Man, and then Fireman, Guts Man, and Iceman. So that should be 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So these are all the bosses that if we defeat, we can switch to their color, switch to using their weapon and get the different color scheme. So then we're going to say public player weapons. We're going to say player weapon. And by default, we are going to be literally default. So every time we start a scene or we start our character, he's always going to be starting out as in his Mega Buster mode. So then we're going to create another structure for our player this time. So we're going to say system, and then it's going to be serializable. And this is going to be called, so it's a public struct, and I'm going to call it player weapons struct. And inside of our player weapons structs, right now we're only going to have 3 different things. So we're going to say player weapons, and then we're just going to call it weapon. So this is going to be the one that is currently selected. Well, actually, this is going to be an array of each one of them, and then we'll keep track of which one we're in a different way later. So then player weapon, and then we're going to say public int, and then current energy, and then public int max energy. Now, the thing about it is they're all it's 28 across the board. So like player health is 28, energy is 28, but you know, if you ever want to limit it or change it, then you can just define this, just override this with a different value. So, but we're going to just keep it in here. So this is basically each weapon is going to be an array of this structure, so that you can keep track of each one, because each weapon obviously has its own energy level, and when you switch to a different weapon, it'll have its energy level, etc. So that's why we're going to basically have one for each of our weapons, and keep track of it in the structure. So public player, what is it called? Weapons struct, and we're going to define an array of that, and we're going to say player weapon structs, for lack of a better title for a variable. So then what we're going to do is we're going to initialize. So we're going to come down here and we're going to do it in start. We're not going to do it in awake, we're going to do it in start. And because we need color struct to basically, it's awake to happen before we can do anything. And besides, our player is always going to be part of the scene, so it's not like going to be spontaneously creating our player, you know. So we shouldn't run into the problem with like we did with the enemies of having them just have their start or their awakes throwing everything. So we're going to do it with start. We really have to do it with start. So first thing, we're going to say int I is equal to 0. So we're going to initialize like we do with current health. We're going to do it with weapon energy. So I is going to be less than the player weapon structs length. And we're going to go through each one of our arrays, which we'll define through the inspector. So player weapon structs index of I, current energy is going to be equal to basically this same thing, but it's going to be max energy. There. So we're going to initialize each one of the current energies to the maximum max energy. So then we're going to say color swap. Now there's the color swap stuff. We're going to get the component. So get component of color swap, because it's now awake, it's alive based off awake. So now we're going to get it through the start method. And then we're going to crawl a function that we have not defined yet. And it's going to be called set weapon. And this is what's going to determine the color scheme part. And we're going to tie it into our teleport just for testing purposes. But once we actually acquire the weapons per se, and the game manager is going to keep track of which levels are completed and therefore dictate which ones our guy can switch to. So we're going to set that kind of stuff up later, and I might end up changing it. I'm not sure yet because it's still really preliminary. So then what we're going to do is we're going to go past the flip. So where's the flip function? Flip, flip, flip. There you are. So right after flip, we're going to define a new function, and it's going to be called public void set weapon, and then it's going to be a player weapons No, I made it public, so maybe I was going to do everything through this. I'm not sure yet, though. We'll see. Still a little too early to tell. So there are two ways that we can do this through the color swap thing. We can do it through lists using this function here, where you basically define a list of the indexes, the red channel values, and then the corresponding colors to replace based off those red channel values. So you kind of create a list for this, passes this function, and then it applies it. Now we're going to do it the other way, where it's basically you're going to call this swap color function for each one that you want to do, and then when you're done, calling this function over and over, then you're going to use apply color to kind of solidify it. So we're going to use option 2. If you go to the code in GitHub, I have an example of how to use do it through lists. If you want to, take a look at that, it's in the comments in the function. But I didn't copy it on here, so I can't copy and paste it in here. So you're gonna have to go and check it out over through GitHub. So first thing we're gonna do here is we're gonna say player weapon is gonna be equal to the weapon. So we're gonna update that variable. And then what we're gonna do is we're going to calculate the weapon energy value so that we can adjust the bar. So we're going to say int current energy, and that's going to be equal to the player weapon structs, which is this one. And then we're going to index it int of weapon, player weapon. So which player weapon is the index, and then we're going to say current energy. And so I'm just going to copy this because it's basically the same thing, but it's going to be max energy, with just a different variable. And then we're going to say float weapon energy. Weapon energy value is going to be equal to float. We're going to convert them to floats because our set value function on the energy bar class expects the value to be a float. So we're going to say current energy is divided by, and this is the same thing that you do with player health too, and that's going to be max energy. So this is our weapon energy value. So based off of which weapon and the array of the structure basically keeps track of each one, you're going to calculate the value for that one, and you're going to end up updating it. So that's the point of that code there. So then we're going to switch upon the player weapon and the player weapon. So we have 7 cases that we have to do. So we're going to start with default, and then so what we'll do is we're going to use color swap, and then we're going to use the function inside of it called swap color, and then we're going to pass it the red channel that we want, which is based off of our int. We're going to cast it as an int, which is going to be off of our swap index that we created, and it's the primary. So we're going to start with the suit, the helmet, the boots, and the gloves, because that's the first color we're going to change. So we actually call this function just twice, one for each one. And if you had to, that's where lists might come in, a lot easier, because if you have way more than just 2 colors. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to use the static function of color swap, which is going to be to change the color from an integer. So we're going to use the function inside of there. It says color from int. And we're going to be passing it a hex version. So based off, if you look up those colors I was talking about, where you have that using like the eyedropper, then you can get the hex values basically. So I'm used to like doing HTML coding and everything like that, so you're going to pretend it's like hex values. So for Mega Man's helmet, when he's like in his Mega Buster mode, the color comes out to 0073F7. So that's the dark blue that comes up. So now we're going to copy that. I'm going to paste that, but the second color that we're going to change with color swap is the secondary color. Ooh, that's not good. And that's actually 00FFFF, and hopefully this thing is going to be able to save, because if I lose all that, then that's really bad. I don't know what that's gonna. Well, we'll find out if it works or not. We're not done yet though. And so what we're going to do for this is we're going to call the UI energy bars so that we can just do everything all when we pick a color or switch a weapon. So instance, we're going to set the image. Now, the default Mega Buster obviously doesn't have a energy thing, but so we're just going to default it to using the player life color, but then we're going to hide it through the canvas using the set visibility. So where the other ones will actually turn it on and set the colors to the other ones. So basically each of these cases is very much identical, except there's like one more line in the others. So we're going to say set image UI energy bars dot energy bars, and then we're going to say player weapon, and then what we're going to get for that is going to be UI energy bars dot energy bar types, and then the type is going to be player life. So you can see all that in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring that down to the next line. So this is basically this function here for set image. You're going to set the bar that you want to use as the weapon, the player weapon, and you're going to say I want the sprite of player life to be the image that the bar uses. And so the next one is going to be the visibility. So to do the visibility, we're going to say UI energy bars dot instance, and then set visibility, and the visibility is going to be on our player weapon bar. So UI energy bars, energy bars, player weapon, and we want to say false. We want to turn it off. So that should basically set the alpha to 0 so it disappears from the screen. So that's the Mega Buster. So let's save that. Copy the case because we're going to modify it. And the next one was going to be Bomb Man. We're going to stick to alphabetical. So Bomb Man's color scheme happens to be 00 for the outer, for the boots and the primary colors is 9400 hex 009400. And then his underlying color, like his suit or his body wear, whatever, is FC. So it's like a really, really, really light gray to white almost. And so player weapon is not going to be player life. What it's actually going to be is the hyper bomb, because that's Bomb Man's weapon that Mega Man acquires. So we're going to say hyper bomb on that. So that's going to change the energy bar to the hyper bomb image. And then after that, we're going to set the value. The other ones we don't set the value. So energy bars dot instance dot set value. We're going to set the value of the player weapon. And the value is going to be this here weapon energy value, which we already calculated above. So weapon energy value. Save that. No. Then the visibility is going to be true though. So because we just switched to this weapon that we acquired from Bomb Man, we're going to change our colors. We're going to activate our weapon bar and change its sprite so that it's the color it should be. So now the Bomb Man's filled out. Basically, we're going to do it for the other 5 guys that we can defeat. So the next one is, I believe, Cut Man. So with Cut Man, his color scheme is going to be, let me see here. It's 747474 for the primary, and his underlying is also this really, really bright white. Now his weapon is actually the rolling cutter, so that's going to be our weapon energy bar color scheme. And then this is the same. So really it's all kind of repetitive at this point. So after cut man, then we have elect man. And then elect man's primary color scheme is the same 747474. So 747474 for the color, but his under is not that really bright white. It's actually FC4A0. And his weapon is actually the Thunder Beam, I believe. Yep. So Thunder Beam is going to be the weapon energy bar color. The next one after Elect Man is going to be Fireman. And Fireman's color scheme, which is really cool, I think. It's like a red, it's like red and gold, almost like UFC colors a little bit. He's D82800 for his outerwear. And then his innerwear is like a gold, mustard kind of goldish color. Or gold, yeah, gold. So FC, no, that's not the one. That's the other guy. So let me make sure I'm on the right guy. Oh yeah. So F0 BC 3C. And then his is actually going to be the Firestorm. That's the color, and then the rest of this is the same. So then after Fireman is Gutsman. So we'll say Gutsman. His primary colors are, let me make sure, it's going to be C8. So C8, 4C, 0C. And his underlying color, or his secondary color, is the FC. So we don't make any changes to that. His weapon energy bar is the super arm, because that's what it ends up being, and the rest is the same. Last but not least, excuse me, is Iceman. So Iceman, his colors is like a blue and a white. So we're going to say his Iceman's color scheme is 20, and then 38, and then EC, and it's this really bright white. And then his weapon is actually the Ice Slasher. And then the rest of this is the same. So let's make sure we save that so we don't lose anything. And now that we've set our color swap values based on which weapon we want to use, we're going to actually come down here and we're going to say color swap. And then we're going to apply the color. And what it will also do, because we uncomment that code, it's going to generate the texture map and actually save it to the hard drive so we can actually look at it. So next, what we're going to do is, let me double check real quick. Uno momento. So that's what we're going to do. That's all that we're going to change for this part at the moment. But then we're going to go into the debug again. So player debug, and we're going to go into the teleport, and that's where we're going to randomly choose our color scheme or our weapon that we're going to use. So we're going to say set weapon. So set weapon is going to be of type player weapons. And then we're going to say unity engine.random.range, and that's going to be 0. And then we're going to say enum.getValues, and then we're going to say type of player weapons. Let's see, and then it's after 2 of those, and we're going to say length, and then end that. So this is going to randomly pick a weapon, and therefore it'll call set weapon, and therefore update our color scheme, etc. So I'm going to save that. And now that we have the player weapon, we don't need this anymore. So we're actually going to get rid of this. But we'll leave our enemy. And let's go back over to this. And I don't know if this is going to work or not because this is like all crashed out. Okay. So for our input, no, not the input, the HUD, we're going to go to our energy bars here. And if we bring this over, we're going to go to our enemy health bar here. And on the canvas, we're just going to set it to 0. We know it works. We already changed the colors, and that's how you basically toggle the alpha. And we're going to see that now with the set visibility for the player. So if it works on that, it'll work on the others. So let's see if this works or not. So let's play it. Cross your fingers. Hope I didn't forget anything. Yep, looks like I got something out of range here, and he's gray, so. Current energy weapon. Oh, duh. Okay. So yeah, I totally forgot to. We have to set up all the arrays. Yeah, I forgot about that. Okay, clear that. Go over your project. Go. We're gonna do it in the prefabs first, and then I don't think it copies over, so we might actually have to do this twice. So we go into our player script here. Now we have our player weapon, which is by default is going to be the Mega Buster we start with, and then our weapon structs here. So we're going to do, there's 7 of them, so we're going to do 7. We're going to hit enter on that. First element is default, and we're just going to say 28 and 28. Even though we have our function updated, we're just going to set it anyway. And then we're going to do it for the others. So our next one is Bomb Man, 20, 28, 28. After Bomb Man, it is Cut Man, 28, 28. And then after Cut Man, it's Elect Man, 28, 28. And then after him, Fireman, 28, 28. And then Gutsman, 28, 28. And last is Iceman, which is 28, 28. So we're going to save that. That's on our prefab. And unfortunately, I don't believe that carries over to our guy in the scene. So which we have to do it again. I guess it did. What do you know? Usually, I don't think it did before when I was writing it out the first time. But maybe we got lucky this time. All right, so let's save it. Cool, all filled in. We're going to come over here. We're going to play it one more time. And then this time what I'm going to do is we're just going to shrink this down a little bit. Let's see, where's our guy at? There he is. So right now he's this gray kind of translucent look, but the color swap should take care of that. He'll become all solid. So let's play it. And he should turn blue, and then boom, there he is. He turned blue. And so now he's blue. So, and we also see that our bar is missing. So I'm going to press T for teleport. And now I just switched, and I just switched to Electman. So my bar popped up. It's got the color scheme for Thunderbeam, and this is his color scheme there. So I'm going to jump, I can run. He's got that color scheme going on. And let's check and see if our thing got generated. So what I'm going to do is, let's just go to graphics here. We're just going to right click on any one of those and just show and explore so we can jump to our project folder. And if we go into the root of it, you can see here the color swap texture was generated. So I'm just going to double click on that just to open it up. You can't see anything, but if you scroll in, you're going to see there's a pixel there and there's a pixel there. So those are the primers. This is actually index 64 and this is index 128. And if you had other indexes, they'd be filled in along here. And what we can do is we'll open it up in, take a little bit. We'll just open it up in GIMP just to take a look. Just so we can zoom in on it and we'll see that there's like a there's a gap on the left and the right in the middle of it. So let's just zoom in. So there's all the transparency. And if I pan over, you can see there's index 64. If I hold my mouse over it, you can see down there in the bottom right over in this area, it says 64. And then if I go over here to the right, oops, past it, there's 128. So if you had 127, that'd be this pixel, and that's, remember, this is just the alpha channel. This is the red channel. That's from our thing. So like I said, read the article and you'll understand what that all means. So that works. So we can really comment that out. We don't really need that anymore. So we know that that's working. And we'll go to color swap. And so if you didn't know how to write a file like a texture to the drive, now you do. So you can just use that code for whatever. So save that. Oh, and to make that work also, if you ever want to do that, you have to import system.io. So remember that too. Otherwise, this won't work, this file. So we're going to come back over to this. I'm going to press T again. Yep, what is that? So what just happened? Something just broke. Player life. I wonder if it's because, oh, it's probably because I changed the code in real time. Sometimes that happens where I'll just throw things off. So let's just start it again. I'll press T a bunch of times. If I don't get any errors, then there, teleport true. So I teleport them default again. That's not, that doesn't look like Electman. That's actually, what is that? That's Cutman's color scheme. There's Bomb Man, which is like a green and white with a hyper bomb. There's Cutman again. There's Iceman. There's Fireman. That's my favorite color scheme right there. And then Electman, Electman again, Cutman, Fireman. And there's Gutsman, Bomb Man, Fireman. So I'm wondering if I might have might have messed up on the sprite there. So I might have to fix that. So if you see like a little line, it's possible that it got too much, you got some of the white in there like I did, or the gray. So that was Firestorm. Yep, I went a little too much down. So go up one, apply it, and that should be fixed. So if I get Firestorm again, I shouldn't have that little gray area underneath of it. All right, so let's see here. Teleport, teleport, everything, teleport, there, yeah, see now it's gone. It's all good now. So that is that part. Now, what is next? We have, this is the bug. Well, it's not a bug. It's just, something I'm sure with the shader, and I just don't know exactly how to fix it off the top of my head. So I have a workaround. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to change our flash damage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what currently happens, and it has to do with the shader, I'm pretty sure, because that's the only thing that's changed. So I'm going to go over here to this part. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to drop in an enemy so that I get a hit, and I start flashing. Now, if you watch the flashing damage tutorial, then you know that we basically changed the alpha on our color. So that basically turns them transparent. We turn them completely transparent or fully opaque over time through a coroutine. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our enemies here. I'm just going to drop in Big Eye real quick. Boom. So he's going to come over here. He's going to jump on me. I'm going to start flashing, and I'm flashing black. I'm not transparent anymore. So that kind of defeats the purpose of flashing if I'm flashing black. So the way we fix this is one of the alternate methods that I had demonstrated in that video. And what we're going to do is right now here we use the color.clear. Well, we're not going to be doing that this time. So we're going to actually stop. We're not going to use those. And what we're going to do is we're going to define a material. We're going to do this other method where we set the material to nothing and then we reapply the material. So we're going to say material, and material is going to actually be equal to sprite.material. So we're going to get that material and save it in this variable here because we're going to need to alter this. So what we're going to do is we're going to set our material to nothing to go invisible. And then down here, we're going to reapply the material, but we're not going to do that because we have a texture involved. So we need the original one that I got generated on. So then we're going to say material. So save that. And now if we do our flash, it should work where we go off and on. And transparent, but really just because we're removing the material and reapplying it. So let's come in here, and then I'm going to drop in Big Eye again. And he's going to jump on me, and then I'm going to start flashing, and I'm flashing. So I'm not flashing black now, I'm flashing like I'm supposed to be flashing. So that's how we solve that problem, because we've changed our shader to use this switch. I don't know how to fix that, and maybe later down the road I can fix it. The other problem with that is when we go to our player and say we want to make him translucent, we change his alpha on this, it doesn't work. He stays fully opaque. So regardless of what you do here, it doesn't work. So down the road, maybe I'll figure out how to fix that, and I'll have like a video I'll put out on to do that. But I don't think in any game that he's ever translucent, so technically we don't need to really worry about it. But the whole flashing thing we did. So we have a workaround. We altered our flash method to compensate for that. So let's see, what's next? I think that was basically it. Let me double check, and I'll be back in a sec. There is like one more thing. It's just to check the health bar that it increments and decrements and everything like that. So I guess we can do that real quick. So what we'll do is we're going to go over here. We're just going to do, I'm going to put it in and take it out. It's going to be in our debug input. We're just going to tie a key. Actually, I don't have the code in there. I did it first when I was building it just to make sure it worked. Okay, so we can't actually do it, but believe me, it works because the value, you can set the value and everything. So actually what we could do is, this is another way. It's not going to be like in real time or anything like that, but what we can do is we're going to change the array of our player. So there's different energies for the weapons. So when we switch between them, you'll see that the bar is at different rates. So let's just come down here with our guy running right now, and then we're going to expand on our weapon structs here. So let's say that's the Mega Buster. There is no bar for that, so whatever we do here really wouldn't matter. Bomb Man, let's do him at 14, like half filled. Let's do Cut Man maybe at 5. Let's do Elect Man at maybe like 20. Let's do Fireman at I don't know, 16 maybe. Guts Man, we'll do it 1. We'll do him at 0, so he's got no energy. And then we'll leave Iceman full. So let's see what happens. So we're just going to go over here. We're going to shrink this so he's a little bit bigger. We're just going to play T. Boom. Okay, so that's, who's that? That should be Gutsman, right? We set Gutsman to 0, so there. Our weapon energy is at 0. So that weapon energy calculation is correct. I'm going to go here. That's Elect Man. That's 20. That's Hyper Bomb, which is Bomb Man, which is here. That's 14. That's half. Looks like half to me. Okay. And then back to the guy that's 0. Gutsman again. Super Arm, and then boom, there's Fireman. So Firestorm, that's 16. And then that's the Thunder Beam, it looks like, which was Elect Man. So that's 20, right? And then I don't have a bar on my default. So the calculations work. So when you flip between them, you'll have whatever current energy is basically stored in the array. So you know that it works. So now I'd say that brings us to the end. So we learned how to change our weapon energy bar color and enemy color too, and which when we get into boss fights, that's going to be good because then we switch between the right color for the enemy that we're going to face, and then we'll deal with collecting the weapon part. So we have a foundation now to have bars and alter our player's color for whatever weapon we switch to. So and then our player, we do it through a shader, and I don't think it's the shader, but I think if you read the article, they did it for Unity 5.6, and that's what I believe I read. So I don't know how compatible that is with the 2019.3.10 that I'm using, or even newer ones beyond this version, because this is it's not really ancient, but it's older than what's out right now. So it's the shader. I'm sure there's a way to fix it, and if I ever figure it out, I'll post like an updated video so that we don't have to worry about disabling the material and then reapplying it. Although it works just the same. It's just there's always different ways of doing the same thing in code. So that's just an alternative to get it to go. So if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, then subscribe. We're building Mega Man little by little. And not sure what the next video is going to be yet, but we're working our way towards boss fights. And so maybe we'll be building a boss, and the boss, when I'm looking at the boss, he kind of flashes, kind of like Mega Man, but he doesn't have the whole knockback or, force that pushes him back. So I have to kind of think about how I'm going to do that one. And then with the whole weapon part collection, so it has to do with building out the scene as well. So stay safe out there, take care, and I'll catch you at the next video. Bye.